So, this is going to be an interesting thought experiment to be had. Today we're talking about a player that was sent down on waivers, but a guy who, just as quickly as a few years ago, was a serviceable NHL player, and even further beyond that, was a top 10 pick. Today, we are talking about Tyson Jost of the Buffalo Sabres, or I guess you could say the Rochester Americans right now. Because when it comes to Jost, this was a guy who, back in 2016, when he was taken in the 10th overall spot in the NHL Draft, he was seen as a potential great pickup. And a lot of this had to do with the Colorado Avalanche, the team that actually took Jost in the draft. He was taken above guys that were pretty valuable as their careers went on, like Charlie McAvoy for the Bruins, Jacob Chychrun for the Arizona Coyotes. Going down the list here, you have a few other names, like Tage Thompson, for example, taken by the St. Louis Blues. Of course, that was in the 26th overall spot. Jost was all the way back up here in the 10th overall spot. And then as you go down the list, you could see even more valuable names that the 2016 draft ended up seeing. You have Sam Steele taken by the Ducks. There was Jordan Kyrou by the St. Louis Blues. DeBrincat is one that stands out for the Chicago Blackhawks. But for Tyson Jost, this was always a really interesting player. Mostly because in the 2016 draft year, he wasn't playing in any of the major junior leagues. In 2015-16, Jost was an absolute monster for the Penticton Vs in the BCHL. 104 points, 48 games played. He dominated the Canadian under-18 team in the international tournament that season, 15.7 games played. And as a result, Tyson Jost was ranked to go in the, let's say, top 20-ish range of the NHL Draft. Ranked 10th overall by Future Considerations, 15th by McKeen's, 16th by NHL Central Scouting for North American Skaters, and Bob McKenzie had him at 11. This is the scouting report for Jost back in this time frame. He was a crafty goal scorer who carried out plays as quickly as he envisioned them. As someone who thinks and plays at a fast tempo, it comes as no surprise that he creates a lot of energy as an offensive catalyst. He sees the ice very well and has the willingness and determination to win battles in the tough areas. All in all, Jost was a dynamic offensive forward with top 6 potential at the next level. Written by Curtis Joe, Elite Prospects 2016. The Avalanche took Jost to potentially be that second-line center behind Nathan MacKinnon. You gotta remember, MacKinnon was drafted just a few years earlier, so Jost was supposed to be another one of these centers that could take charge and just produce offensively into the long-term future. Now, the problem here with Jost was that he went over to the NCAA, was really good actually, over a point per game as a freshman, 35 points, 33 games played. But after he made his pro debut, he never really broke out past being a 20-point guy in 60-ish games played. He had 26 points in 70 games in 2018-19, but as his career went on, he was never really able to improve significantly. As a result, the guy got sent down on waivers a few times, he got traded a few times. Last year with the Buffalo Sabres, he had 22 points in 59 games played, which was great. But this season, the guy only had 4 points in 29 games played. Tyson Jost went from a top 10 pick and a point-per-game NCAA freshman to waivers, all in the span of about 7 years or so. So what I wanted to do in this video was talk about what happened. Why was this the case? Now, if you go over to the Buffalo Sabres and their situation here, they ended up waiving Tyson Jost yesterday, and he cleared today, so there you go, he's down there in the AHL. But the really interesting part about Tyson Jost and this entire progression is if you go over to his game log and you see what that's been about, the last game that Jost ended up playing before getting sent down on waivers actually had him as first-line center for the Buffalo Sabres. Now, he had 6 minutes of time on ice against the Boston Bruins, so that's not really great. I don't really understand how he was able to get first-line minutes while only playing 6 minutes, but this is the subreddit on our hockey that went out there and talked about it, Hutchinson and Jost on waivers. By the way, if you wanted to talk about the Red Wings, yeah, Hutchinson is out because Alex Lyon came back, so their desperation signing had to get sent down. It's not really that big of a deal. For Tyson Jost, though, here is the top comment from Gorchenko. Jost playing number 1 center last night to getting waived this morning is wild. And, yeah, one of the replies says, no, he's not with the Minnesota Wild anymore. That's a funny joke. But, yeah, Tyson Jost has been a healthy scratch until the number 1 center we have, T.H. Thompson, was out last minute. Instead of switching up all the lines, I guess the Buffalo Sabres just decided to plug Jost in up top. The other lines were finally all healthy and back together, so the logic was, screw it. Maybe the top 3 suffer a little bit one night, but it keeps everything else building on the other lines now that they're in order. Then nobody did a thing, so here we are. And that happens to be the case. Yeah, Jost didn't really do much in the first-line center position, but hey, when Tage Thompson is out, you gotta get your replacements in there somehow, and that just seemed to be the most appropriate option from the Sabres' point of view. Another reply goes out there and says this: Jost went from a healthy scratch to playing first-line center to being waived. Crazy how that happened, and crazy that he was ever on the first line. To be fair, the Tage Thompson situation happened like right before puck drop, so I'm sure they weren't expecting it, and instead of messing with the game plan, they just dropped Jost in Tage's spot. Bold to assume there was any kind of plan. So there you go, Buffalo Sabres fans going out there and tossing their own team under the bus. But then you have yourselves even more replies that finally go out there and just talk about what happened with this player. What's up with Tyson Jost? The dude gets passed around like crazy. Colorado to Minnesota to Buffalo, and if someone claims him, add another one on the pile of teams he has been chucked to. Wasn't Jost a very serviceable third liner for the Avs, and he requested a trade to get more shine, which unfortunately happened in their cup year? Not sure. What I do know is the Minnesota Wild waived him after he sucked in the playoffs and in the regular season, and then the Buffalo Sabres picked him up. Though I saw his stats at one point and thought he did well, but who knows, Buffalo is a real blank show this year. And this happens to have been the case when you acknowledge that Jost was a consistent 20-point guy for the Colorado Avalanche after debuting with the team post-NCAA years. But eventually, on the Minnesota Wild, he wasn't great. He had 6 points in 21 games in the regular season to end off that season, and 3 points in 12 games to open up the next year, which is why he got waived in the first place. Was all right in Buffalo, and now he's not doing all too hot anyway this season. It's been a very strange career for a guy that was a top 10 talent and a player that could have been seen as the second-line center behind Nathan MacKinnon at one point in the Avalanche's timeline. Eventually, he got moved out right before the Avalanche won the Cup, too, which definitely sucks, but, I mean, hey, that's how it goes sometimes, right? Nico Sturm is coming in here and making a pretty big impact. Here are some more comments on the subreddit. Tyson Jost was very good right after we claimed him last year, then he went to pretty good, to alright, to a healthy scratch, to expendable after we traded for Eric Robinson. Here's another reply. I actually think Jost has turned himself into a decent bottom six forward. He's just not going to beat out most of the Buffalo young roster for ice time, and the guys you could maybe make a case he could play over, they aren't going to scratch. Kyle Okposo is the team captain, and he does his job in a limited role. Jordan Greenway is a penalty killer and more physical than Jost. So for Jost, he's basically in limbo. He doesn't have the offensive talent to hang in the top six, and Buffalo doesn't have the space for him in their bottom six. And that's certainly an analysis that you could have, whether or not the Buffalo Sabres don't have the opportunity for him that he desires at the NHL level. But then again, he was placed on waivers. A whole bunch of teams had the opportunity to get him for free, and they said no. Maybe it's because he's making $2 million a year to the end of this season, but even as a 25-year-old forward, it doesn't really seem like there's a great future for Jost in the NHL. To end off this video, we'll go over one more comment. Ace676 goes out there and says that Jost was taken too high. I doubt he was ever worth a 10th overall pick. Beyond that, the Avalanche messed up his development, brought him up to the big leagues too early since we needed centers. They should have spent a year or two more developing this guy. He's basically a replacement-level player right now. At least, he was for the Avalanche. He rarely hurts your team with a bad play, but he won't create much either. He shows flashes of skill every 10 to 15 games and disappears right after. So, with that in mind, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about how Tyson Jost went from a top 10 pick to getting waived and cleared just a few years later. What are your thoughts on the way this guy has developed, and if you're a Buffalo Sabres fan, do you see Jost having a significant role with your team beyond this AHL stint he's going to have? If you're a Colorado Avalanche fan, what are your thoughts on the idea of y'all developing Jost too quickly and rushing him to the NHL? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.